You've owned your aloe for years, watered it, ignored it, loved it. Then one morning, a strange stalk shoots up from the center. Most people panic. They think it's a weed, a disease, or worse, that their plant is about to die. But that stalk is one of the rarest events in the plant world. In the next few minutes, you'll understand exactly why it happens and what it means for your own aloe. And the strange part is, if you own an aloe, this is probably already happening to yours. You just haven't noticed. Over 90% of aloe owners never see a single bloom in their lifetime. So if you're one of the lucky few, something very specific is going on. What actually triggers this incredibly rare event? By the end of this video, you'll know the exact conditions that cause your aloe to bloom, and how to use that knowledge to your advantage. No guessing, no conflicting advice. Just the science behind one of nature's most surprising signals. Subscribe now to spend less time searching and more time growing better plants. That's what ExoticaPlants is all about. This is Aloe Vera, one of the most unkillable plants on the planet. It thrives on neglect, survives in almost any condition, and is famous for its healing gel. Native to the Arabian Peninsula, it's been used for over 6,000 years, from ancient Egypt to modern medicine cabinets. Which is exactly why what happens next feels so unexpected. Under the right conditions, this survivor transforms. It sends up a flower stalk that can reach 3 feet tall, covered in tubular orange blooms. But here's what almost no one realizes. Most indoor aloes will never do this. Ever. So when yours does, it's not random. It's a message. For an aloe to bloom, it needs to be at least 4 years old. Sometimes older. Most indoor aloes never reach that milestone under the right conditions. They sit in dim corners, get overwatered, or stay root-bound in tiny pots. And they survive, because aloe is a survivor. But survival and thriving are two different things. When an aloe finally does bloom, something extraordinary happens. That flower stalk isn't just a decoration. It's called an inflorescence, a towering structure that can reach up to 3 feet tall. And those tubular blooms aren't just pretty. They're packed with nectar, designed specifically to attract hummingbirds, bees, and other pollinators. In the wild, this is how aloe reproduces. The flowers open from the bottom up, giving pollinators weeks of continuous access. Each flower produces tiny black seeds that can travel for miles on the wind. But this is where it gets even more interesting. The energy required to produce that stalk is enormous. Your aloe is essentially throwing a massive reproductive party, and it's using years of stored resources to do it. That's why you'll often notice the lower leaves looking thinner or slightly curled during the bloom. The plant is pulling water and nutrients from its own leaves to fuel the flowers. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of commitment. The aloe has decided that now is the time to pass on its genes, and nothing will stop it. So if you see that stalk emerging, your first reaction should not be panic. It should be curiosity. Because your plant just told you something incredibly valuable. It feels safe, mature, and perfectly aligned with its environment. Most plant owners will go their entire lives without hearing that message. You're about to learn exactly what it means. Now here's where the confusion starts. If you've ever grown agave or certain succulents like sempervivum, you know they're monocarpic. They bloom once, then die. So it's easy to assume aloe works the same way. You see that flower stalk and think, oh no, this is the end. That fear has caused countless people to cut off the stalk prematurely, thinking they're saving the plant. They're not. They're just interrupting one of the most beautiful events in aloe's life. But this is where it gets even more interesting. Aloe vera is not monocarpic. Unlike agave, which puts all its energy into a single spectacular bloom and then perishes, aloe can flower multiple times throughout its life, year after year, under the right conditions. The mother plant doesn't die after flowering. It doesn't even slow down much. In fact, many aloes will produce pups, small offsets around the base, in the same season as the bloom. Your aloe is not committing suicide. It's showing off. So where did the myth come from? It's a case of mistaken identity. Agave and aloe look similar to the untrained eye. Both have spiky rosettes of succulent leaves, but agave is generally larger, has a sharp terminal spine, and blooms only once after decades. Aloe is smaller, has softer leaves with teeth along the edges, and blooms repeatedly. The confusion is understandable, but the consequences are real. People have thrown away perfectly healthy blooming aloes because they thought the plant was dying. Let me be clear, after your aloe finishes flowering, the stalk will dry out and turn brown. That's normal. You can cut it off at the base. The plant will continue growing as if nothing happened. And next year, if conditions are right, it may bloom again. Some aloes have been documented flowering annually for over a decade. The record? A single aloe plant in a botanical garden bloomed every year for 22 years straight. So the next time someone tells you that a blooming aloe is a dying aloe, you can correct them with confidence. Science is on your side, so what actually triggers a bloom? It's not magic. It's not luck. It's a specific combination of environmental signals that tell the plant, now is the time. And understanding these signals is the difference between waiting forever and seeing flowers every single year. The biggest factor isn't fertilizer. It isn't pot size. It's photoperiod, the changing length of daylight. Aloe vera is genetically programmed to sense when days start getting longer after winter. That shift, combined with a cool, dry rest period, acts as a biological alarm clock. In its native habitat, the desert experiences mild winters with shorter days and cooler nights. When the days begin to stretch in late winter and early spring, the plant interprets that as the start of the growing and flowering season. No long days, no bloom. But this is where it gets even more interesting. Temperature plays an equally critical role. Aloe needs a winter rest period with temperatures between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit, about 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. If your home stays warm year-round, your aloe never gets that signal to rest and reset. It just keeps growing slowly, never building up the hormonal trigger for flowering. Think of it like this. The plant needs to know that winter happened before it can celebrate spring. Without that cool period, the internal clock stays stuck. Then there's water. During the rest period, aloe should be watered sparingly, maybe once a month, or even less. Dry soil during cool temperatures reinforces the message. Times are tough. Prepare for reproduction when conditions improve. Overwatering during winter confuses the plant. It thinks resources are abundant, and there's no need to rush into flowering. Light intensity matters too. Aloe needs bright direct light for at least 6 hours a day during the growing season. A south-facing window is ideal. If the light is too low, the plant won't have enough energy stored to produce a flower stalk. Even if all other conditions are perfect, insufficient light means no bloom. It's that simple. And finally, age. Aloe vera simply will not flower until it reaches maturity, typically 4 to 5 years old. Some varieties take even longer, so if you have a young plant, don't be disappointed. Your job is to keep it healthy until it's ready. The bloom will come when the plant decides it's strong enough to carry the energy cost. Here's the part almost no one talks about. When your aloe blooms, it's not just a biological event. Across cultures, it's been seen as something much bigger. In Feng Shui, an aloe flower is believed to attract wealth and prosperity. In spiritual traditions, it's considered a sign of protection, inner renewal, and good fortune. People have hung blooming aloe flowers over doorways to ward off negative energy. Others have placed them in bedrooms to promote restful sleep and emotional healing. But this is where it gets even more interesting. Ancient Egyptians called aloe the plant of immortality. They buried pharaohs with aloe leaves to accompany them into the afterlife. Queen Cleopatra used aloe gel as a daily beauty treatment and reportedly saw the flower as a personal omen of power. In South African traditional medicine, a blooming aloe is considered a blessing from the ancestors, a sign that the household is in harmony with nature. In Chinese medicine, aloe flower is used in remedies for digestive health and inflammation, though the leaves remain the primary medicinal part. And then there's the symbolism that crosses all borders. A blooming aloe is rare. It requires patience, care, and the right environment. So when it happens, many people interpret it as a personal reward, proof that their efforts have paid off. It's no different from a fruit tree finally bearing fruit or an orchid opening its first flower. The difference is that aloe blooms are so much rarer that they feel almost miraculous. Whether you believe in symbolism or not, one thing is certain. A blooming aloe is a sign of a perfectly happy, healthy plant. It means you've provided the right light, the right temperature, the right watering schedule, and enough time. That's not luck. That's skill, and you should be proud of it. Some modern gardeners even keep bloom journals recording the date, conditions and appearance of each flower stalk. They share photos in online communities, celebrating what many will never see. There's a reason for that excitement. In a world of instant gratification, aloe teaches patience. It doesn't bloom on demand. It blooms when it's ready, and that makes the moment unforgettable. So if your aloe is sending up a stalk right now, take a moment to appreciate it. You're witnessing something that most plant owners will never experience, and you're about to learn exactly what to do next. So what looks like a random accident is actually a response, a very specific signal that the plant has reached full maturity and found its ideal environment. That stalk isn't a problem to fix, it's a trophy to celebrate. Your aloe isn't struggling, it's thriving, and if you've never seen it before, now you know exactly what it takes to make it happen. Let me break down the science in the simplest terms possible. Aloe vera, like all plants, has one ultimate goal: reproduce. It doesn't care about looking pretty on your windowsill. It doesn't care about your Instagram photos. It cares about making seeds. The flower stalk is its reproductive organ. Every ounce of energy that goes into that stalk is energy directed toward creating the next generation. But here's what makes aloe different from almost every other succulent you own. Aloe has evolved a strategy called heteroparity, the ability to reproduce multiple times over its lifespan. Most succulents are semilparous. They reproduce once and die. Aloe is built for the long game. It can afford to bloom year after year because it doesn't put all its resources into a single, suicidal flowering event. Instead, it paces itself. A healthy aloe will produce a moderate flower stalk, drop seeds, and then go back to growing leaves and pups. Next year, if conditions are still good, it will do it again. That's why the conditions matter so much. If your aloe blooms once and never again, something changed. Maybe you moved it to a darker spot. Maybe you started watering more frequently. Maybe the temperature in your home shifted. The plant is constantly reading its environment. When conditions are perfect, it blooms. When they're not, it doesn't. That's not a flaw. That's intelligence. And here's the truth that most online guides won't tell you. You can do everything right and still not get a bloom. Sometimes the plant just isn't ready. Sometimes the genetics of your specific aloe variety make flowering less likely. Aloe vera has dozens of cultivars and some are more prone to flowering than others. The common Aloe barbadensis miller, and the one you buy at the grocery store, is actually one of the least reliable bloomers. Rarer varieties like Aloe striata or Aloe arborescens flower much more readily. So if your aloe has never bloomed after years of perfect care, don't blame yourself. Blame the plant's DNA. Or better yet, don't blame anyone. Just appreciate that you have a healthy, happy aloe that's doing exactly what it's supposed to do: survive and grow. The flower is a bonus, a beautiful, rare, unforgettable bonus. But it's not the measure of success. The measure of success is a plant that's still alive after you forgot to water it for 3 weeks. And aloe? Aloe always wins that game. And interestingly, this lines up with what people have believed for centuries, just explained in a completely different way. Ancient cultures saw the aloe flower as a symbol of healing, protection, and renewal. Modern botany confirms that same flower is a sign of optimal health and environmental alignment. The language is different. The meaning is the same. Your plant is communicating with you. The question is, are you listening? Think about what a blooming aloe represents in human terms. It's not a needy plant. It doesn't demand daily attention. It stores its own water. It heals itself when cut. It thrives in conditions that would kill most other houseplants. And yet, despite all that independence, it still needs the right environment to reach its full potential. That's not a plant metaphor, that's a life metaphor. How many people do you know who are surviving but not thriving? How many are going through the motions, staying alive but never blooming? The aloe teaches us that survival is not the same as flourishing. You can keep a plant alive in a dark corner for years, but it will never flower. It will never show you what it's truly capable of. The same is true for people, for relationships, for careers. The conditions have to be right, and creating those conditions takes intention. But here's the hopeful part. Aloe is incredibly forgiving. You can neglect it for months and it won't die. It will just wait. It will sit there, Patient, storing energy, waiting for the moment when the light returns, the temperature drops, and the water becomes scarce enough to trigger its internal clock. Aloe doesn't give up. It waits. And then when the time is right, it explodes into color. That's the insight I want you to carry with you. Whether you're a spiritual person, a scientific person, or somewhere in between, the blooming aloe is a reminder that rare and beautiful things happen when conditions align. Not by accident, not by luck, by alignment. The ancient Egyptians weren't wrong to call it the plant of immortality. Not because aloe lives forever, but because its lessons live forever. Patience, resilience, timing, the willingness to wait for the right moment instead of forcing something before it's ready. So the next time you look at your aloe and see nothing but green spikes, don't be disappointed. It's not ignoring you, it's preparing. And one day, maybe next year or maybe 5 years from now, you'll walk into the room and see that strange alien stalk reaching for the sky. When that happens, you won't panic. You'll smile. Because you'll finally understand what the Egyptians understood, what the Chinese understood, what every gardener who ever witnessed a blooming aloe understood. Some things can't be rushed. They can only be earned. Practical application. Here's how you can actually encourage your aloe to bloom, or manage it, depending on your goal. These steps are simple, actionable, and based on real botanical science. Follow them consistently, and you'll maximize your chances of seeing that rare flower stalk. Number 1. Give it a winter rest. From November to February, reduce watering dramatically. Once a month is plenty, maybe even less. Keep your aloe in a cooler spot, ideally between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. A cool bedroom, an unheated sunroom, or a garage window can work perfectly. This rest period mimics the desert's natural dormant season and is absolutely essential for flower development. Number 2. Maximize sunlight. During the growing season, spring through fall, your aloe needs 6 to 8 hours of bright, direct light daily. A south-facing window is ideal. If you don't have one, invest in a quality full-spectrum grow light. Position it 6 to 12 inches above the plant for 12 to 14 hours per day. Without sufficient light, no amount of rest or fertilizer will trigger a bloom. Number 3. Use the right fertilizer. During spring and summer, feed your aloe with a half-strength, phosphorus-rich succulent fertilizer every 4 to 6 weeks. Look for an NPK ratio like 277 or 145. The middle number, phosphorus, supports root and flower development. Too much nitrogen, the first number, will produce lots of green leaves, but zero flowers. Never fertilize during the winter rest period. Number 4. Don't overwater. This is the number 1 killer of aloe, blooming or not. Aloe stores water in its thick leaves. Let the soil dry out completely between waterings. Stick your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it feels wet, wait. If it's bone dry, water thoroughly until it drains from the bottom. Root rot is silent, fast, and almost always fatal. A thirsty aloe recovers. A drowned aloe dies. Number 5. Choose the right pot. Aloe likes to be slightly root-bound. A pot that's too large will hold excess moisture and discourage flowering. Use a pot with drainage holes. Terracotta is excellent because it wicks away moisture. The pot should be only 1 to 2 inches wider than the root ball. Repot every 2 to 3 years, but only into a slightly larger container. Number 6. Be patient. This is the hardest step. Aloe blooms on its own timeline. If you've done everything right, the winter rest, the bright light, the correct fertilizer, the careful watering, the flower will come when the plant is ready. Not a moment sooner. Forcing it with extra fertilizer or heat will backfire. Trust the process. And one final tip. If your aloe does send up a flower stalk, do not cut it off. Let it grow. Enjoy it. After the flowers fade and the stalk turns brown, you can trim it at the base with clean shears. The plant will continue growing normally, and if you're lucky, next year it might just do it all over again. It doesn't happen by chance, it happens when the conditions are right. And when it does, it's not just a flower. It's proof that you've created an environment where life doesn't just survive, it thrives. That stalk reaching toward the light is your aloe's way of saying thank you. Thank you for the patience. Thank you for the light. Thank you for understanding that some things can't be rushed. Most people will never see an aloe bloom. If you're one of the ones who does, take a photograph. Remember the date. Because that moment, that rare, quiet, extraordinary moment, is a gift. Not from luck, from alignment. How long have you had your aloe, and have you ever seen it bloom? Let me know in the comments below. Share your story, your photos, your questions. I read every single one. And if you want to go beyond basic plant care and start truly understanding your plants, subscribe to ExoticaPlants. Hit the bell so you never miss a video, because the best plant owners don't just grow, they learn. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep your hands in the soil and your curiosity alive.